kami sa'yo, no? Pero sige, alang-alang sa apo ko.
Ano? Apo mo?
Buntis si Betsy.
Hello, Dad. Nasaan ka na?
Pupunta ako ng Lias Medical Center. Betsy is pregnant.
What?
Gusto lang namin malaman ng totoo, Doc. Namin malaman kung buntis si Betsy.
There, that's the embryo. Soon, it will grow into a healthy baby.
Dad, naniniwala ka ba na ikaw ang tatay?
Kung hindi ako, si Gerald.
Ano ginagawa mo dito?
Gusto mo makita yung anak natin.
Anak mo kay Betsy, buntis yung kabit mo. At posibleng ikaw ang ama.
Sinasabi mo buntis ka, ha?
Eh kasi, yun ang totoo. Buntis talaga siya.
Bakit? Natatakot ka na baka ikaw ang ama? Huwag kang mag-alala, hindi ikaw ang tatay. At kung ikaw man, hindi ko sasabihin sa'yo. Para saan pa? Eh wala ka namang kwenta. At anong ipapakain mo sa anak ko, ha? Hangin?
At ikaw, sa tingin mo magiging mabuti kang ina. Hindi! Dahil ito nanay mo!
Gagong to ah! Damay-damay!
Kung buntis ka man, at ako ang ama, hindi ko hahayaang lumaki sa iyong anak ko.
Eh, kaso nga, hindi nga ikaw, di ba? Kaya pwede ba, huwag ka namang gulo, huwag ka nang umepal dahil wala ka namang karapatan. Lumayas ka na rito! Malis ka na nga! Malis ka na!
Oh, alis ako!
Layas!
Nak. Nak, patawarin mo ako, ha? Pero hindi mo na makikita daddy mo. Hindi ko na kasi kaya lahat ng sakit, eh. Nakahirap na hirap na ako. Sana paglaki mo maintindihan mo si Mami. Hindi ko gustong masira ang pamilya natin. Pero wala na akong choice, anak. Patiwaran mo ako. I'm really, really sorry.
Ano? Buntis nga si Betsy.
Panibagong problema na naman to. Madadagdagan na naman yung galit sa akin ni Gina. Hindi ko na alam kung anong gagawin, bro. Hindi ko pa nakakasama si Mindy. Tapos ito naman ngayon. Sunod-sunod na masyado eh. Nakakapagod na.
Partner, paano kung anak mo nga ang pinagbubuntis ni Betsy? Pananagutan mo ba?
Nay, anong pangalan ng ubi ko? Magaling ba talaga siya? Bakit parang hindi naman clinic to?
Basta, maraming tanong.
Oh, yan na pala kayo. Ready na ba kayo?
Dala mo na ba yung pera? Cash?
Mo? Maliit lang pala. Madali lang yan.
to? Sino ka ba?
Susan, hindi pa pala alam ng anak mo. Eh, ba't mo siya dinala dito?
Sandali lang ako, usapin ko. Betsy, makinig ka sa akin. Kapirasong tubo at laman pa lang yan. Pwede pa natin ipatanggal.
Anong ipatanggal? Ano ibig mong sabihin? Ipapalaglag mo yung anak ko?
Kaya pumarte. Di mo naman alam kung paano mo bubuhayin yan eh.
Hindi. Hindi ko papatayin yung anak ko.
Gaga ka o tapos ano? Tutulad ka sa akin? Papaparis ka sa akin? Alam mo ba kung anong impyerno pinagdaanan ko mapalaki ka lang?
Kahit na. Palalakayin ko yung anak ko kahit mag-isa lang ako.
Makinig ka nga, Betsy. Bata ka pa. Sisirain mo ang buhay mo pag nilabas mo yan. Tsaka sarili mo nga, hindi mo alam paano mo buhayin.
Hindi.
Magdadami ka pa ng iba?
Hindi na. Hindi mo siya pwede ipalaglag. Mahirapan na ako kung mahirapan, pero nanay ako na anak ko siya. Sana maintindihan mo.
Ang padramahin pati pagbubuntis mo. Wala ka na magagawa. Ilalaglag natin yan. Sa ayos gusto mo.
Nay, ano ba? Pag pinalaglag mo yung anak ko, lalo tayo mawawala ng pag-asa kay Robert.
Eh, ayaw ka nang panindigan, di ba?
Hindi. Tatawagin ko siya. Pakikiusapan ko siya. Basta gagawin ko lahat para makumbinsi siya.
Hindi na makikinig sa'yo yun. Sirang-sira ka na dun eh. Eh, huwag ka nang umapila. Halika na!
Nay, sandali! Ayoko!
Halika na. Mel, tulungan mo ako!
Ayoko, Nay!
Tulungan mo ako, Mel!
Ayoko! Sinabi mo ako! Ayoko na! Ano ka ba? Sabi na ano ba? Ayoko! Ayoko! Ay! Tama na! Ay!
Betsy!
Ay! Tama na!
Betsy! Betsy! Tupuan!
Hindi! Tama na! Tigilan mo na ako! Tigilan niyo yung baby ko! Ayoko mawala yung baby ko! Pananagutan to ni Robert! Maniwala kayo sa akin!
Sige! Tawagan mo siya! Pag napapayag mo siya, hindi na natin ito itutuloy!
Sandali!
Hinahamon kita, tawagan mo ang magaling mong asawa! Tingnan natin kung may malasakit pa siya sa bata!
Sandali! Ito na! Ito na! Tatawagan ko siya!
Ano naman to, Betsy?
Hello? Robert! 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 Tulungan mo ako, Robert!
Pwede ba, Betsy, tigilan mo na ako? Hindi mo na ako magagago.
Robert, papatayin nila yung anak natin!
Ano?
Dinala ako sa abortionista. Ipapalaglag nila yung baby natin, Robert. Ayoko mawala yung anak ko. Tulungan mo ako!
Hello, Gina.
Dad, nasan ka? May mga kailangan ko na akong papirmahan sa'yo.
Gina, tumawag sa akin si Betsy.
What? Bakit mo naman sinagot?
Anak, may sitwasyon tayo. Gustong palaglag ni Susan ng bata. Humihingi ng tulong si Betsy.
Dad, totoo ba yan? Or pakana lang nila yan?
Pwede ko naman baliwalain ang lahat ng ito. Total, hindi naman ako sigurado kung akin ang bata. Pero paano kung akin siya? Kapatid mo, Gina. Papabayaan ko na lang ba siyang mawala?
Abot ang pintuan! Betsy! Betsy! Buksan mo yung pinto!
Paano nga kung ako yaman ng bata?
Kailangan mong panindigan, anak. Kahit pabungan ng pagkakamali, anak mo pa rin yun.
Tama ka na eh. Anak ko pa rin siya. Hindi ko siya pwedeng pabayaan.
Walang kasalanan yung bata.
Pero posibleng anihin niya ang consequences ng kasalanan ng mga magulang niya.
Tama ka. Pero ano pa ba magagawa natin? Si Gerald man o si Daddy yung tatay, Isa lang yung pinakamasakit sa lahat. Si Betsy pa rin ang ina. Kahit kailan hindi ko yun matatanggap.
Sandali! Sandali! Ay, ano ba? Tigilan niyo na ako! Tigilan niyo na ako! Ano ba? Pupunta na dito si Robert! Pupunta na dito si Robert!
Hindi tayo titigil hanggang wala si Robert dito!
Pupunta na siya dito! Ano ba? Tama na! Bakit ba pinipilit niyo ako? Huwag niyo ako pilitin! Ano ba? Katawan ko to! Buhay ko to! Anak ko to! Huwag niyo pakailaman kung anong gusto ko!
Pero cargo pa rin kita! Oo, anak mo yan! Oo, buhay mo yan! Pero kung problemahin pa rin kita pagka nilabas mo yan, wala ako magagawa! Na pwede ba? Lalaglag natin yan sa kahit sa gusto mo!
Ayoko na! Ayoko! Ayoko mahawakan sa akin! Ano ba na? Ay, mahawa kayo na! Tama na! Mahawa kayo sa akin! Tama na!
Ikaw ang maawa! Maawa ka sa sarili mo! Maawa ka sa ating dalawa! Maawa ka sa bata dahil hindi mo alam paano mo palalamunin yung pag pinanganak mo! Kaya sige na, sasabihin lang to, Betsy!
Ayoko!
Relax ka lang, Betsy!
Ayoko na!
Dali lang to!
Ayoko! Time, please!
Ayoko!
Ayoko! Ayoko na ako!
Hoy!
Hawakan mo!
Tama na yan!
Ay! Robert! 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 Salamat sa paligid!
Sino ka ba?
Robert!
Ikaw, tigil mo yung ginagawa mo. Magpapatawag ako ng pulis.
Buo yung bata, hindi ba nagagalaw? Susan! Ayokong makulong!
Nay! Robert! Robert, tama na! Nay!
Napakawalang hiya mo, ina.
Nay!
Ikaw, hindi ka walang hiyang ama. Hinuhusgahan mo mga desisyon ko. Bakit? Aabot ba kami sa ganito? Kung pinanindigan mo yung bata,
Kahit na, Nay.
tumigil ka. Para sabihin ko sa'yo, hindi na to pera-pera, Robert. Lalaki yung bata na walang tatay. Alam mo ba kung gaano kahirap yun? Alam mo ba kung gaano kahirap magsilang ng sanggol sa mundong to na wala kang katuwang? Kapag nahihirapan na si Betsy, dahil wala na siyang masasandalan, ikaw na mananagot. Pag naganap ng tatay yung bata, ikaw ba sasagot? Ikaw ba ang papaliwanag sa kanya kung bakit siya tinalikuran ng ama niya? Putris kayo! Nagiging praktikal lang ako dahil pinagdaanan ko lahat yan! Kaya oo, sige. Hindi na ako mahusay na ina. Pero ano, hindi ko papabayaan na pagdanasan mo yung impyernong buhay na dinanas ko.
Kahit na, Nay. Wala ka pa rin karapatan na pagdesisyonan ang buhay ng baby ko.
Tama na yung drama ninyong dalawa. Nakapag-desisyon na ako.
Nag-message si Guido. Pumunta daw sila ni Daddy. Doon kay Betsy para pigilan siya.
Mabuti na rin yun. Hindi na paano yung baby.
Pa rin ako natutuwa. Paano kung ginagamit lang nila yung baby para ma-manipulate ulit si Daddy?
Natuto na si Sir Robert. Magtiwala ka na lang sa kanya.
I trust my dad. Kay Betsy siya kay Susan, hindi. Sana nga hindi na lang si Daddy yung naging tatay ng bata.
Kung hindi naman si Sir Robert, si Gerald naman.
Hirap. Either way, talo ako.
Mapahag na ako magpa-DNA yung bata. Sigurado akong akin siya.
Robert, sa'yo siya. Sure na sure ako. Salamat at kinikilala mo yung anak natin.
Huwag ka masyadong kampante. Hindi pa ako committed sa pagbubuntis mo hanggat hindi lumalabas ang resulta.
Pero handa ako magpa-DNA. Dahil sigurado ako ikaw yung tatay. Handa ako, Robert.
Ako na maghanap ng doktor para matuloy na yung procedure na yan. Sagot ko na lahat. Gusto ko lang siguraduhin, kayong dalawa, hindi nyo ipepeke ang resulta.
Grabe ka naman, Robert. Ano ba tingin mo sa amin, manggagancho?
Gusto mo ba talagang sagutin ko yan? Oo. Tingin ko sa inyo manggagancho, manggagamit, manloloko, at mukhang pera. Tensya na. Hindi ako masisisi.
Sige, papayag ako sa kung anong gusto mo. Pero sa oras na mapatunayan ko na ikaw yung ama, hindi mo ako pwedeng baliwalain.
Tama.
Saka na lang natin pag-usapan yan pag lumabas na ang resulta ng DNA. Tara na.
Ang lakas naman na loob mo. Paano kung hindi si Robert ang tatay niyan?
Ano ka ba, Nay? Kanina ka pa. Kung nega, ito lang yung pag-asa natin. Kaya wag mo nang kontrahin.
Oh, ayan ha. Dinagdagan ko yan. Galing ng acting mo kanina, convincing.
Para kipat naging theater actress ako nung araw, Mare. At gumawa pa ako as abortionist sa indie film. Kaya tignan mo, kompleto lahat ng props ko.
Kaya nga, pinahanga mo naman ako. Approve.
Buti na nga lang dumating si Robert. Kung hindi, palpak na naman lahat ng plano mo.
Ano ka ba? Kaya nga hindi ko sinabi kay Betsy yung totoo. Para tawagan niya talaga si Robert. At saka nakita mo, totoong-totoo yung takot niya.
Winner ka talaga, Mare. Bilip ako sa'yo.
Grabe, Nay. Baka na mo lang pala yung nangyari.
Ano naman ngayon? Tagumpay naman ah.
Akala ko kasi, papalaglag mo na talaga yung baby ko eh.
Gaga. Kaba, apo pa rin yan. Tsaka yan nga lang ang pag-asa natin para yumaman tayo ulit eh. Siyempre, hindi ko palalaglag yan. Siguraduhin mo lang ha. Si Robert talaga tatay niyan.
Manalig ka lang, Nay.
So should I say, Dad, nagtagumpay na naman ang mag-ina na makuha ang gusto nila.
Importante, I was able to save a life. Regardless kung kaninong anak siya, that child does not deserve to die. Cheers.
Paano nga, Dad, kung ikaw yung ama ng bata? Ano magiging setup niya? What's your arrangement? Pabalik na naman sila sa buhay mo.
Well, you know, Gina, that's gonna be tough. Dahil siyempre, dapat alalahanin ko ang kalagayan ni Betsy. You know, after all, siya ang ina ng bata. Pero hindi ibig sabihin nun na patatawarin ko siya. Ina lang siya ng aking anak. Hanggang doon na lang yun.
Okay, I understand. It's the right thing to do naman.
Paano kung si Gerald ang ama ng bata? Anong plano mo?
Nothing will change. Nakapag-desisyon na ako na hindi na babalik si Gerald sa buhay ko.
Nak. O, ayan, nag-message na si Robert. Bukas na raw yung DNA test. Ura-urada. Excited much.
Sabi ko naman sa'yo na eh. Sabik din si Robert na maging daddy ulit.
E, paano ba yan? Kung hindi si Robert ang lumabas na tatay sa DNA.
Hindi man siya ang tatay. Gusto kong malaman kung ako. Karapatan ko yun. Pananagutan ko yung anak ko kahit pa'y sinusumpa ko na ikaw ang naging nanay niya.
Dahil 2 months pa lang naman ang pregnancy ni Ma'am Betsy, I would recommend a non-invasive prenatal paternity test. Simple lang naman ang gagawin natin sa kanya. Kukunan ng blood sample si mother, which is si Betsy, habang si Robert, as the suspected father, ay kukunan ng DNA sample by swab test. The result usually comes after 1 to 3 weeks.
Ang tagal naman.
Pero dahil may kakayanan si Robert, ipapadala natin sa ibang bansa ang sample for faster results.
Gusto ko lang malaman ang resulta in the fastest possible time. So I made special arrangement. And they promised that they will deliver the soonest. So habang naghihintay tayo, huwag niyo muna akong tatawagan.
Ha? Paano kung may mga pangangailangan si Betsy habang buntis siya?
Magbibigay ako ng wastong halaga pero hanggang doon na lang kayo.
Sigurado ako ikaw ang ama, Robert.
At kung hindi, kayong dalawang malilintikan dahil sa balang ginawa niyo sa akin.
Handa ka na bang malaman ng totoo, Robert?
Tagal na ako handa. Ikaw, parang kinakabahan ka.
Ako? Kinakabahan? Bakit naman ako kakabahan?
Sabihin mo nga sa akin, Betsy, habang maaga. Ako ba ang tatay?
Ikaw lang. Wala nang iba.
Sinama mong papalayan.
Gusto ko rin malaman eh.
Oh, di sama-sama tayong alamin kung sinong tatay.
Hanga ako sa kuya mo. Sa kabila ng lahat ng pinagdaraanan niya, nagawa niya pa rin harapin ang responsibilidad niya.
Pero Nay, paano kung si Kuya ang tatay ng ipinagbubuntis ni Ma'am Betsy? Paano na sila ni Ma'am Gina? Hindi kaya makaka-apekto ng matindi sa kanila yun?
Anong ginagawa niyang lalaki yun dito?
Sabi ko naman sa kanya, huwag na siya mag-aksaya ng panahon. Hindi naman siya yung tatay.
Di pa rin tayo nakakasiguro.
Ano sa paninindigan mo kung anak mo?
Gina, I'm sorry. Kailangan kong gawin yung tama kahit na mali ang ginawa ko. Hindi ko pwedeng talikuran ng bata dahil wala siyang kasalanan kahit na ako ang ama.
Sige yan, this is a joke. Nasaan ba yung resulta na yan?
Dito na ba yung doktor? Doc? Good afternoon, everyone. Nakuha ko na ang DNA result.
Anong resulta, Doc?
You are very lucky. Napabilis ang proseso ng lab abroad. Nakuha agad natin ang result. Here it is.
Thank you.
Bert.
John D. Rockefeller, born in 1839 in Richford, New York, entered the world under humble and uncertain circumstances, the son of William Big Bill Rockefeller, a traveling salesman often accused of being a swindler, and Eliza Davison, a deeply religious woman whose discipline and piety left an indelible mark on her son. And from this unusual mix of questionable ethics on one side and rigid morality on the other, young John learned to lessons that would define his life. Money is power, and discipline is survival. From an early age, he displayed an unusual obsession with numbers and record keeping a ledger where he meticulously tracked every cent he earned and spent, and while other boys played, Rockefeller calculated interest, practiced bookkeeping, and dreamed not of toys but of financial control. By his late teens, he was already in business, first as a bookkeeper and then as a partner in a produce commission firm, but when the oil boom began in Pennsylvania in the 1850s and 60s, Rockefeller recognized something few others saw. The fortune was not in drilling wells or taking risks with exploration, but in refining crude oil into usable kerosene, a commodity every household and industry would depend on. With almost monastic discipline, he began building refineries in Cleveland, and step by step he constructed what would become the greatest monopoly in American history. By the 1870s, Rockefeller's company, Standard Oil, had outmaneuvered hundreds of competitors using ruthless but brilliantly calculated tactics. Secret rebates from railroads, undercutting rivals until they sold out, creating trusts to consolidate ownership, and reinvesting profits rather than spending them. His philosophy was simple yet brutal. Competition is a sin, he declared, and through relentless consolidation, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of the oil refining business in America by the 1880s. With this dominance came not just wealth, but an entirely new model of capitalism. Rockefeller understood vertical integration long before the term existed, ensuring that from wells to pipelines to rail cars to refineries to distribution networks, Standard Oil held every link in the chain, squeezing out inefficiencies and multiplying profits. By the turn of the century, Rockefeller had become the richest man in history, his fortune at one point estimated at over $400 billion in today's money, equivalent to controlling more wealth than most governments of his time. Yet, while the public vilified him as a robber baron, Rockefeller quietly began preparing for something even more ambitious than building the largest fortune the world had ever seen. He began constructing a system to make that fortune immortal. The government eventually came for Standard Oil, and in 1911 the Supreme Court ruled that the monopoly must be broken up under antitrust laws, splintering it into 34 different companies. But what seemed like a defeat was in reality one of the greatest financial victories in history, because Rockefeller, who still held stock in the company, suddenly owned pieces of dozens of entities that rapidly grew in value. Out of the breakup emerged giants like Exxon, Chevron, and Mobil, companies that still dominate global energy today, and Rockefeller's wealth multiplied even further, turning him officially into the world's first billionaire by 1916. But even as his oil fortune grew, Rockefeller was already shifting his focus to the question that haunted many wealthy men of his age: how to ensure that his riches would not dissolve within a generation. He knew the history well most great fortunes are squandered by the third generation. The famous shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations curse that sees grandchildren of tycoons live lavishly, lose discipline, and erode the family fortune. Rockefeller, ever the planner, designed structures that would outlive him. The first and most powerful tool was the trust. By embedding his wealth in carefully constructed legal trusts, he ensured that no single heir could recklessly dismantle the empire and that the assets would be protected from excessive taxation and lawsuits. These trusts were designed to manage wealth collectively, providing steady income to heirs while keeping the principal locked away and growing. But Rockefeller went further, creating one of the most influential philanthropic empires the world has ever seen. In 1913, he established the Rockefeller Foundation, which became the prototype of the modern philanthropic foundation and endowed it with hundreds of millions of dollars. The foundation was not merely charity, it was a mechanism of power. Through it, Rockefeller could fund initiatives in medicine, education, science, and public health while simultaneously embedding his family's name and influence into the very institutions that shaped society. The University of Chicago, built with Rockefeller funding, became a world-class institution. The Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research pioneered breakthroughs in modern medicine, and Rockefeller money helped eradicate diseases like hookworm and yellow fever. Philanthropy became the polished face of a fortune often criticized for its ruthless origins, but more importantly, it became a vehicle for directing global progress in ways that aligned with Rockefeller values. Unlike the ostentation of some wealthy families, the Rockefellers embraced a philosophy that became their generational shield: own nothing, control everything. Assets were often placed in foundations, corporations, and trusts where the family did not technically own them outright, but still controlled their direction and benefited from their influence. By mid-20th century, the Rockefeller wealth had evolved beyond oil. They had embedded themselves in finance, with Chase Manhattan Bank a cornerstone of today's Morgan Chase becoming a financial empire in its own right. Their investments spread into real estate, agriculture, international development, and the arts, diversifying the family fortune into areas less visible but equally powerful. The Rockefellers also understood that influence was not just about money, but about shaping ideas and policies. They donated the land on which the United Nations headquarters was built in New York, symbolically linking their family to the new global order emerging after World War II. And through their foundations, they became involved in shaping international organizations like the World Health Organization and UNESCO. Through philanthropy, banking, education, and politics, the Rockefeller name became less about one man's fortune and more about a dynasty's enduring influence. Generations of Rockefellers took up roles as governors, senators, philanthropists, and businessmen, ensuring that their presence was felt not just in boardrooms but in legislatures and international bodies. Nelson Rockefeller, for example, became Vice President of the United States, while others quietly guided policy from think tanks and advisory roles. What set the Rockefellers apart from other dynasties was not just the scale of their wealth, but the discipline with which they preserved and evolved it. The family adhered to traditions of frugality and responsibility, raising children with an awareness of stewardship rather than indulgence, and reinforcing the idea that wealth was a tool for impact, not mere luxury. Today, nearly a century after John D. Rockefeller's death in 1937, the family fortune is estimated at around $11 billion distributed among more than 200 heirs, but this number barely scratches the surface of their real influence. Much of their power lies in the assets controlled through foundations, endowments, and trusts that are technically separate but still guided by Rockefeller influence. The companies born of Standard Oil remain titans of the global energy industry. The financial institutions linked to the family are pillars of Wall Street, and the universities, medical institutions, and philanthropic projects seeded with Rockefeller money continue to shape knowledge, health, and culture. The reason the Rockefeller fortune has not died and likely never will lies in the systems Rockefeller himself designed. Trusts that protect capital, foundations that channel influence, diversified investments that adapt with time, and a family culture built on stewardship rather than waste. While most tycoons leave behind piles of money for heirs to spend, Rockefeller left behind a machine, a self-replicating organism of wealth and power that grows and evolves long after his death. The lesson of Rockefeller's fortune is not merely how to make money, but how to make it eternal. By embedding wealth in institutions, by shaping society through philanthropy, by investing in future-proof sectors, and by cultivating a family ethos of control without extravagance, Rockefeller created a blueprint for dynastic power that billionaires today still try to imitate. His fortune was born in oil, but it survives in banks, universities, global organizations, and 1,000 quiet channels of influence that shape the world around us. This is why, nearly 100 years after his passing, the Rockefeller wealth continues not just to exist, but to thrive. It was never about dollars in a bank account. It was about designing a structure where money is merely the fuel for an engine of influence, an engine that keeps running no matter who is at the wheel. And that is the enduring secret behind Rockefeller's wealth that won't die. It is not simply wealth at all, but a system of power, resilience, and adaptation, a dynasty woven into the very fabric of the modern world.